Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Ray, and I'll be hosting today's Friday webinar session. And today's session, we'll be talking about billing and credit card processing. So today, we're going to focus on building invoices, showing you how to build invoices, how to accept payments. On the handouts that I have inside the GoToWebinar, you should have this PowerPoint that you're seeing on your home screen. So if you want to download this handout, you have it there available. And then besides that, on this GoToWebinar, you have areas where you can chat and you can also ask questions. Please, whenever you have any questions, feel free to jump in, ask a question on there. If it's something billing related, we'll definitely cover it in today's session. If it's something outside of billing, we probably won't cover it in today's session, but we can definitely follow up afterwards, maybe sending some instructions if you have any questions regarding other functions of the e-immigration software. So let's get started. Before I jump into showing you how the feature works, I'm going to send out a little poll. Basically, just want to know how knowledgeable are you with e-immigration billing? So just trying to get a good sense of, are you a complete new user? You know a good amount, but want to learn more, or you're a pro. So yeah, just open and honest, uh, showing you how, yeah, sounds good. All right, so let me go ahead and close this poll. So it looks about 50-50 here. It looks like 50% are brand new. I'm a beginner. You're learning about billing inside e-immigration, and the other 50% looks like you know a good amount, but would like to learn more. So, that's good to hear. With that, hopefully today, if you're a brand new user, we can kind of take you from point A to point Z on how to do billing inside e-immigration. If you already use billing, hopefully there's things that maybe you've overlooked that hopefully in today's session we can definitely answer some of those questions. Now, on here on this PowerPoint, I added also a little layout of kind of the order that we'll be presenting today's session. First, we're going to be talking about applying billing settings inside the admin tools. So the first kind of 10-15 minutes, we're going to talk about setting up things in the admin tools, because once you set up things there, that's how it's going to affect what you see inside the caseworker portal. We'll then go into creating invoices and payments. From there, creating payment plans, adding trust accounts, storing payment information, even show you, setting up auto payments, and then lastly, using reports for billing. So this is kind of the layout that we have on here. And if you download this handout, these have links on here. So if you were to click on apply billing settings, it would take you into our YouTube video that shows you how to apply billing settings. Same thing with creating invoices, same thing with setting up auto payments. Each one of these have a link so that you can it can take you into the video inside YouTube. All right, so let's go inside e-immigration. So again, the first thing we're going to cover is applying billing settings. So that takes place in the admin tools. Now with this, you do have to have access to the admin tools to be able to apply those billing settings. If you don't, you may want to contact maybe someone in your office who has admin access. Maybe they can give you access, or maybe they can do this themselves. But the first thing we're going to want to do is click on the settings button and then click on administrative tools. Now from here, there's a couple things that we want to cover, but the main thing for billing to work is you want to add things that are called billing items. When you're building invoices inside e-immigration, you're going to basically pull billing items and accumulate those billing items to generate an invoice. So going into billing items here, now with this, we're using one of our testing sites here. So we have a bunch of dummy billing items that you see here. But to add a billing item, you can click on add billing item. It's going to ask you to enter a code, and this code is pretty open to whatever you want to assign on here. It can be any number code, any letter code. It's just to help you identify what exact billing item this is. You can select what type of billing item this is. More than likely, you're only going to have like professional fee and filing fee, and I'll show you in a little bit how you can add different fee types. That way you can select them on here. And then kind of the more important thing that I would like to point out is the description. The description is actually the billing item that's going to be displayed on the invoice and also help you identify what you're charging your client. So hypothetically, if I'm doing a consultation, maybe a consultation over Zoom, Maybe that's the description that I want to enter on here. Maybe that's the description that I want the client to see in the invoice. So you want to enter your description. You want to enter any random code, again, maybe something to help you identify. And then the last couple things that you can do on here is, adding the price. So with the price, there's a couple ways to go about that. I can either do a flat fee. Maybe there's a flat fee that we typically charge for this type of service, or maybe this is an hourly fee. Maybe I charge $100 an hour and I can add hour on here. So it's either up to you, having a flat fee, having an hourly fee, and we'll see inside the caseworker portal how adding an hourly fee, you can accumulate hours and add that information. And then the last thing you can do is you can make an item taxable. Now, with adding a taxable, it doesn't mean the software will automatically tax the item, but when you're working inside an invoice, you can apply a tax rate, and the software will calculate only invoice items that have this taxable checkbox on there. So again, with this, ideally, you'd want to come in and basically create a billing item for everything that you do: shipping, consultations. Maybe there's a flat fee for the services that you do, adding one by one, adding these billing items. And in doing so, I can now select these at the moment of creating an invoice inside the caseworker portal. Now, if you remember, in each one of these, we do have something that's called a type, a filing fee type, where you can add that. Now, that is added in. If I go back to my admin home, you're going to see where you see billing item types here. And that's just basically that drop down menu. More than likely, you only have professional fee, filing fee, legal fees. You might have like two or three, but this is just like a different type of fees, that billing item types that you want to add. This wouldn't necessarily be the billing item. The billing item is what we saw before, but this just allows you to customize a little bit more that little drop down menu that you saw when creating a billing item. Now, with that, we've added a billing item. We've seen how we can add billing item types, but then there are a couple more things that you may have overlooked when doing billing. Now, one thing that may have been overlooked is your user settings of what you can do regarding billing. So that means maybe I have all these billing items, but I haven't given myself enough permissions to do things regarding billing. So if you have admin to access, you have access to your user profile. Now, with that user profile, you will basically locate your caseworker profile here. I'll look up mine, Ray Herrera here. I can click on the edit button. And the reason I point this out, because if you scroll down to the area that's called access rights, the access rights is technically things you can and can't do inside the software. So hypothetically, if I were to check everything off here, all these settings, I basically have given myself access to do everything in the software. And one of those settings that we have here is you're allowed to do billing. First of all, if you have it blocked, then you can't create any invoices inside eIMMIGRATION. If you click allowed, you're allowed to do it. Then we also have columns for updating, deleting, and creating. So from here, do I want to give myself access to delete invoices? Do I want to give myself access to be able to reverse payments, give discounts and late fees, allow to enter trust accounts, delete things? So basically, hypothetically, if I were to allow myself everything and check everything off here, then I have access to do everything when working inside the invoice. So maybe something to consider, maybe not something that you have to do now, but down the road, if you're wondering, well, why can't I reverse a payment, or why can't I add discounts, or why can't I do different things? Why can't I delete an invoice? More than likely, you don't have that setting enabled here. And by me coming in here, checking everything, making sure everything looks good, clicking on save, my user profile when I log in now has those permissions to be able to delete things, reverse things, and so forth. So just wanted to point that out, being able to give yourself some permissions on there. And then not just that, not only do you have permissions that you can give yourself or other users, you can also give permissions, not necessarily permissions, but you can apply some billing settings if you go into the application settings. Now, in the application settings, these are kind of like your general settings of the account. There's a lot of things that you can do on here: form settings, case settings, and so forth. But the one that we're going to focus on the tab to the right here is the billing settings area. In the billing settings, this is where you want to, you can add some default things on here, which means you can enable invoice deletion for everyone, or take everyone's access to delete the invoice. You can add default things like automatically set a due date, where you can say maybe 30 days from the invoice date that it's created, 30 days from the month. So that just means when I create an invoice today, the software will automatically add a due date for 30 days from today. So you can manually add those as you go, but with this, it just makes it, a default setting where it automatically just adds those. Also, we'll see in the invoices where you'll have notes at the bottom. You can automatically add notes at the bottom, maybe some specific instructions. This will automatically reflect on there. You'll also see things now. Recently, we added where when a client makes a payment on the client portal or a caseworker makes a payment on the client on the caseworker portal, pretty much everyone associated with that client now receives an email notification letting you know that the client has made a payment. So we added where there's a checkbox here where you can have it where send a confirmation for manual payment via the to client via email. This just means the client can receive an email that they've made a payment when you apply a payment inside the caseworker portal. And then the second thing is we also have a setting for your caseworkers to receive an email. So send confirmation for manual payment through caseworker portal to caseworker via email. So this just means, do I also want my caseworkers to be aware that this client has made a payment in something that we made applied via the caseworker portal? So with that, in our scenario here, we have it where we do want the client to be notified, but we don't want every caseworker to be notified. So you can uncheck those. But with those, it's up to you. Should you want to have everyone receive an email, you have that capability as well. So as mentioned, you also have other things on here. Should you create a payment plan? These are default settings. Apply overpayments, notify client via email prior to due date. So you can leave it as is. You can manually apply those, or you can always come in here and just change these default settings. So when you create an invoice, the software already has that information on the invoice or those settings in payment plans and so forth. So just wanted to point that out. And then also, if you also have the credit card processing optional module, which allows you to link your LawPay or PayPal, the area that you would go, it would be inside your payment gateway. Now with this, we already have our LawPay. Actually, here we have our PayPal account open. But if you want to link up your LawPay or PayPal account, you would go to your payment gateway. And just to show you what that looks like, let me actually sign off this account. Let me go into our other testing account, how it would look like when you're trying to log in. So going into another account here, just going back into the admin, going into our application settings. If I go to my payment gateway here, this is how it's going to look like. It's going to tell me, do I want to link up with PayPal, with LawPay? If I select LawPay, it's going to ask me to authorize LawPay access, where it'll basically take me into LawPay, where I'll enter my credentials to log into LawPay. And once I sign in here and authorize, the integration with LawPay and eIMMIGRATION, this now allows me to accept credit card payments to any invoice that I create inside eIMMIGRATION. So yeah, you have that option of, linking that. Same thing with PayPal. I can select PayPal, and in doing so, this one will ask you more for like to enter your merchant IDs, your operating account IDs, trust account IDs, which this can be grabbed from your PayPal account, and we can provide some material on how to grab that information. But once you apply that information, merchant ID, operating account, trust account ID, click on save, then you will now be able to accept credit card payments, and all those transactions will now appear on PayPal or LawPay, whichever one that you apply on here. So just wanted to quickly show you that. Let me actually log back into the other testing site that has that already linked here. So we saw some billing settings. We saw a payment gateway where you can link up your LawPay or PayPal account. The last thing I did want to show you inside the admin area is not only can you create billing items, but you can also even associate billing items to a case process that you typically do. So if you customize your case process, maybe you have specific cases, maybe on those cases, you already know what exactly you're going to charge your clients. I can go inside my case processes here. And from the case process here, if you're unaware of case processes, this is an area where you can, one, customize these cases, which means every time I select a case, I can tell the software these are the exact forms I need to work on. These are the exact steps we need to work on. This is a document checklist, and we'll definitely cover this on a future session, just showing you how to customize those case processes. But one of the things that I want to point out is you can also even associate billing items here. So that means every time I do a perm, these are the exact billing items I want to appear here. From here, I already have some billing items already associated to this. If I want to add more billing items, I can add process billing items. And then with this will grab the list from the billing items that we saw previously. So you can't create billing items here. That still has to be done at the billing items area inside admin. But once it's built, I can come in here and say, okay, Maybe this I-130 test, maybe we typically charge this every time we do this type of case. Let me add it. And in doing so, when I now work on this type of case, I can now pull this information and the software will automatically list all the billing items that I have for that type of case. So with this, again, just kind of showing you on the back end, on the settings wise, how to create your billing items, how to associate billing items with the case process, how to give yourself permissions, how to give other people permissions, and also even add default settings in the for the invoices. So now it's actually time to start creating invoices inside the caseworker portal. So to create an invoice, let us go back into our settings. Let us go to our caseworker module, taking us back into the caseworker portal. And from here, there's two ways to go about creating an invoice. Previously, you were only allowed to create an invoice via when you would create a case, meaning you had to create a case, and when you created a case, basically that was the only area where you were allowed to add invoices. But we recently changed where you're now allowed to also be able to create invoices directly inside the client profile. So I'll first show you how to create an invoice inside the client profile, but we can definitely go right after show you how to create an invoice via the case, building a case, and then from there, having the invoice be generated. So the first one, I'm gonna go into my client profile, and I'm just gonna look up a dummy profile that I have here. I have my client Ismail. And from there, inside the client's profile, you're gonna go to the billing section. And from the billing section, there's a couple of things that we're gonna go over, like adding trust accounts, adding payment methods, but the one that we're gonna focus on is invoices. Now from here in my invoices section, if I want to start creating an invoice for my clients, I'm gonna click on add invoice. And from here, it's gonna give us a couple options. The first thing it's gonna ask us, do we wanna create an invoice for a case, which means we already have a case profile created here, or do I just wanna create an invoice without a case? If I wanna create an invoice without a case, it's gonna ask me, do I wanna add some invoice items? And from here, the software is going to start pulling all the billing items that I have on here. Now, keep in mind, because we're in the client profile, we technically don't have any cases associated to this. So this just means maybe you have a consultation fee. Maybe there's an initial fee that you typically charge your client. Uh, because of that, it's not going to list these items for a particular case. But from here, I can go one by one selecting what I want to charge my client. Maybe there's a consultation fee. Maybe there's different fees that I typically charge my client. But from there, as soon as I click on the checkbox, as soon as I scroll down, and it looks like we have quite a few billing items, but from here, if I go and click on add, I've now added the billing item for a consultation that we did. We charged $200. And then from here, I can say, you know what? We talked for 2 hours. I'm going to put 2 hours on here. If I click on save here, the software now reflects the extended price of $400. So for this example, maybe this is the exact thing I want to charge my client. I only want to charge him $400. Then last thing I can do is I can add a template, our default invoice that we have inside the software. And then the last thing that we can do, the last couple things is you can add a setting for you and your users to only accept one payment type, which means if I select something as payment card, that just means when I go to process the invoice, I'm only allowed to add payment card. If I add cash, same thing applies. If I leave it blank, it just means you're open to accepting any type of payment. So it is an optional setting. You have that option of adding it there or leaving it as is. And then the last thing, you have the option to send a confirmation for manual payment to the client. So because I selected this in the admin, it automatically listed this as default. That's that same thing. Once we start applying payments, the client will receive an email notification. Once we start applying cash, payment card, whatever type of payment, they'll receive an email notification every time you process the invoice. So from here, I have my expenses. I have, my template. I've added optional payment type. I have this checked. I'm going to click on add. And in doing so, our invoice has now been created. It's going to have, my due date is already added on there. It's going to add my descriptions. It's going to add my notes at the bottom that I had by default. But keep in mind, this is already predetermined for me. But if I wanted to make any changes, I could say, okay, maybe I don't want them to pay by July 13. Maybe I want them to pay by the 31st. I have that option there of changing the date. Same thing with consultation. Maybe I just don't want it to be consultation. I can add more things on here. I could say consultation about case. You could do that beforehand, or you can do it at the moment of creating the case. But it'll add that information on there. And then I can do things like it already has my notes here, but if I wanted to add more notes here, you can certainly type out more things. Again, you more than likely would want to have these already predetermined if you add that information in the admin, but with confidence, you can always make edits on the invoice, at the moment of creating the invoice. So from here, if everything looks good, this is the exact thing I want to charge my client, $400. I can click on save. And in doing so, my invoice has now been generated. I now have an invoice for $400 here. From there, my clients, I can now send this to my client. I can do things like add payment plans and so forth. But before I do that, I actually want to show you how this would look like if we were to create an invoice inside the case. Just because with there, it'll show you how you can associate billing items to a case type. And then from there, I'll show you how you can do things like add payment plans and so forth. So just kind of wanted to quickly show you how you can create an invoice inside the client profile. But now I'll show you how you can create an invoice inside the case. And at that level, I'll then show you how do I start applying payments? How do I start, adding payment plans? How do I start adding trust accounts and having that, deduct from the invoice? So just wanted to quickly show you how in the client profile you can do it. But in the scenario where you want to have that invoice inside a case, maybe you've already started working on their case, maybe at that point there's a lot of more expenses that you need to charge this client. The first thing that you're going to want to do is have a case for the client. So going into the cases here, I'm going to open up one of these cases, and I'm going to say maybe for this one I'm going to open up this case. Now in the case profile, uh, kind of the same thing. You want to go to the billing tab that you see inside the case profile, and from here you're going to see a couple of different options. Not only do you see invoices, but you're also going to see expenses and charges. So if I click on expenses and charges here, it's going to have a bunch of dummy expenses here. Let me actually delete a lot of these just so I can show you kind of starting from fresh. So when I go to expenses and charges, kind of the same thing. I can go and add expenses here. And then if you have any billing items associated to a case type, the software will already predetermine these are the exact things that you have to charge your client. So this is kind of the one difference between in the client profile and the case profile. With the case profile, because you have the ability to select your case type, your process, you can have the software already predetermine what exact things you have to charge for your client, as opposed to going one by one and checking those things inside the client profile. So you have either option, but from here, hypothetically, if I want to charge everything to my client, I can select everything, or maybe there's just a couple things I want to charge him. I can click on add expense. And in doing so, in this scenario, you're adding expenses first. So in the case profile, you can add expenses, which means I don't necessarily have to create an invoice now. I can, come back at a later date and add more expenses. So with expenses, you're just accumulating what you want to charge your client. But once you're ready to generate an invoice based on these expenses, you're going to go to your invoices. And in your invoices section, you're going to click on add an invoice. And from here, it's going to open up a couple things. One, it's going to list the expenses that we just set in the previous screen. So I can say, I want to charge all three items. You can even select who do you want to charge this. So if you have multiple people linked to this case here, you can select them. Since I only have my client Ismail here, he's the only one that is available. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Ismail's name. And then from here, kind of the same thing that we saw previously. You can have your default invoice. You can force your users to accept one type of payment. You can have it where the software automatically sends an email to the client when you start applying payments. But the same thing, as soon as I click on add, the software will generate an invoice. It'll automatically add a couple things here and there. And with that, if everything looks good here, the notes, everything looks good, I can click on save. And in doing so, the software has now created an invoice. Now, with that, even though I created the invoice inside the case profile, I can still view the invoice inside the client's profile. So this invoice for $7,350, if I were to go into Ismail's profile, I can click on his name. I can go to the invoices here. I can go to invoices. And then from there, I can now see two invoices that were created. The initial one that we created for $400 and the one for $7,350. The only difference, this one is assigned to a case. This one is, telling me that this belongs to this case. But in the client profile, I can come in here and start adding payments and so forth. So with that, Again, you have the option of in the client profile make invoices or at the case profile make invoices. But in either scenario, if you go back into the client profile, you'll be able to see, those two different invoices where you'll see that he owes $7,750. Now, once you want to start applying payments onto an invoice, it's pretty simple. I can just click on if I'm inside the client's profile, I can click on the select drop down menu. I can click on add payment. And from here, it's going to open up this add payment box where I can enter things, the type. There's different options: cash, check, money order. If I select payment card, this basically is what is linked with LawPay or PayPal. So you can enter credit card numbers, expiration dates, security codes, add payment. And in doing so, the funds will go into LawPay or PayPal, and then the invoice will be processed. But for our purposes here, I'm just going to say maybe the client paid us with cash. I can say he paid us maybe the full amount, $400. I can enter a reference where I can say maybe this was the first payment or anything. It's pretty open to whatever you want to enter on here. I can even have the software add the date for today, or I can add whatever date that we've applied this payment. But once I click on add payment, I've now processed the invoice. The invoice for $400, it shows as paid. There's a balance of $0. If I were to actually open up this invoice again, clicking the select drop down menu and clicking on open, I'll now see that the invoice will now it'll be to zero. And even if I go to the second page here, the client themselves will have a little paper trail of the payments that have been applied on there, so they can easily see that a cash transaction was done on the 28th for $400. This is a reference that you've entered, and it was applied by this caseworker, so they themselves will be able to view this information. Now, if you want to do something like a payment plan, then as opposed to clicking on add payment, you actually want to click on payment plan, which is right below. And with this, it opens up a couple of different things. One, it adds the ability to create that payment plan, which basically you'll come in here and start setting the terms of the payment plan, where I can say maybe the first payment is at the end of next month. I want the installments amount to be $200. I want this to be it's not just a monthly thing. You can do it every day, every week, every month. But let's say every month, you want that installment amount. You want to notify the clients maybe 5 days, 10 days prior. So you can always decide how far in advance they receive a notification about the payment is due. And then you can also even include a payment link to that invoice, which I'll show you in a little bit what that payment link looks like. But you can also have the email automatically included so that when they click on that payment link, they can enter their credit card information and then from there apply payments onto their invoice. So something to consider, adding that information. And then not just that, you also have the ability to create automatic payments for your clients. Now with automatic payments, I'll come back to this and show you how that looks like. But keep in mind, not only do you have the option of creating a payment plan, but if you have any credit card or bank ACH information stored in your client's profile, you can also even do automatic payments. And with this, as opposed to notifying them that their invoice is due, they'll get a notification letting them know that their invoice will be processed in 5 days, uh, you know, and they'll get an invoice letting them know that the invoice was paid. So you have that option of not just creating a payment plan, but also you could do an automatic payment for saved payment types. Now, with that, we have that information. We've set up payment plans and so forth. Now, the last thing I did want to mention here, there's a couple things you can do. One, pretty straightforward. If you want to just manually email this to your clients, maybe their invoice, pretty straightforward. I can click on the checkbox to the left. I can click on email invoices here. From there, the software will attach the invoice and you can add a letter template. If you have a letter template, maybe you have one created in the admin and the software, it'll populate the information. If you don't have a letter template created, then you can just come in here and manually type out your message to your client, but you can send, again, this invoice via an attachment so they can review it via email, being able to view this information. But if you don't send that email notification, if you set up a payment plan, just keep in mind that the software, should you set the terms, should you set notify the client, then the software will let them know, hey, 10 days prior, you have a payment due in 10 days for $200, and it'll give them the invoice for them to review via that email. And then other things that you can do on here, you can at any point, if you have permissions, you can give discounts and late fees. You can reverse payment. So the first one, should you want to add a discount or a late fee, I can manage and discount. I can add a discount. I can add a late fee. So maybe if my client didn't make a payment by this certain date, I can add a late fee. I can say, I'm just going to call this late fee, enter the amount for $100, whatever it may be, apply the date for today, click on save. So then from there, I've added a late fee on here, and they'll now see the new balance of $7,450. So that they'll be able to see that information on there. Or the opposite, if I don't want them to have a late fee, I can delete that. I can add them a discount. I can say, you know what, from the original 7,350, want to give them a discount. I can say maybe they were referred by someone, whatever the situation may be. Maybe a discount of $100, same thing. I can click on apply, click on save, and in doing so, the invoice will now reflect that new that discount that I've added on there. Or if I added a payment on here, I can always go and click on reverse payment, which means maybe for whatever reason I made a mistake. This client didn't pay $400. I can click on reverse payment. I can void a transaction or I can refund. Maybe we're going to refund him $200. I can enter a reference. I can say client overpaid or whatever the situation may be. But from there, once I click on refund payment, same thing. My invoice will now reflect that new balance of $200, whatever information you add on there. But yeah, easily be able to add discounts, easily be able to reverse payments inside the software. And again, this it will only allow you to do so if you have those user preferences, those user access rights inside the admin, inside your user profile. So not everyone has that access. It's only if you have those settings enabled, you'll be able to add discounts or be able to refund an amount inside those invoices. Now, last thing to show you here is inside the invoices is you can also even send a direct payment link to your client. So if I want them to start making payments now, maybe it's not a payment plan, maybe, I have an invoice for 7,250 and I want them to be able to make a payment. I can click on the send payment link. And from here, there's a couple options when it comes to sending a payment link. I can send it via email, or if you have the SMS optional module, you can send them a text message to make payment on their link. From here, I'm going to send this to myself here. Let's say ray@cerenade.com. I'm going to click on send. And from there, within a couple seconds, I should receive an email notification with that payment. Let me go on here. So I just got that payment letting me know that you may make your payment through the secure link. So let me actually copy this. Let me bring this over onto a different browser here. Let me sign off this thing here. So if I was the client and I received a text message or I received an email, this is what I would see. I would see that I have an invoice for 7,250. The invoice due date is on the 13th. And it's now on them to come in here and apply credit card information, security code, payment amount, their first name, last name, just confirming their information. But once they click on add make payment here, one, the funds will automatically go into your LawPay or PayPal account. So it'll automatically go there. And secondly, you'll receive an email notification that the client has made a payment. That was a new thing that we added, where once they make payment, the people assigned to this client will receive an email. But also, if you go back into their invoice, you'll now see their invoice reflected inside eIMMIGRATION. So with this, with confidence, you can send payment link. They can click on the link via their email, via their cell phone. They'll view this link, they'll apply payments, and then from there, be able to process the invoice, inside eIMMIGRATION. Now, not only can you send a payment link, but should you have your clients, should they have access to the client portal, they can also view their invoices inside inside the client portal. Now, if you are unsure if your client has access to the client portal, inside their client profile, there's a tab all the way at the end that says client access. And in the client access, there's a couple things. One, you can take away their access to the client portal, but secondly, you can give them access to the client portal. You can update their login name and password. You can add expiration dates. You can give them access to billing. You can even resend them their credentials to log into the client portal. But in this scenario, if your client has access to be able to log into the client portal, well, then with that, let me actually exit out of here. If I go inside the client portal, and then I'm pretending I'm the client, I receive that email notification to be able to access the client portal, I can log in. And from here, they themselves will also be able to see their invoices. They can click on the invoices tab or the invoices tab here to the left here. It'll take them to the same area. But with this, as opposed to having a payment link, this client portal just makes it a easier way for them to, one, be able to view their invoices where they can see what you created inside eImmigration, where they can see what's those charges, discounts, whatever you've entered on there, so they can easily view that, and they can also even see a little paper trail of what's been added to their payment history. But not only that, they can also even make a payment on here as well. So you have those options of not just the payment link, but if you direct your clients to the client portal, they can go inside their client portal, they can enter, the amount, their credit card number, expiration date, security code, click on apply, and the same thing happens. Once they add a payment on here, the invoice inside eImmigration will now reflect those funds that you've added on there. So you have either or, both options. So with that, kind of sums up, processing invoices, the different ways that you can go about it, payment links, and so forth. The last couple things to show you here is trust account and payment methods. So the first one, if you want to add those payment method into a client's profile, you can go to add payment, go to payment methods inside the client profile. On here, you're going to see the option to add a payment card, and then depending on your settings, you can also add bank ACH information. But from here, I can add a payment card. I can basically plug in any credit card, that credit card number, expiration date, the year, the security code. But from here, if you click on save, you now save the information inside the client's profile. Now, with this one, because it's a bogus credit card that I just entered, it's going to tell me there's an error. So even with that, this is kind of like the first step. The software will let you know, hey, something's bogus with this credit card. Please enter the correct number, the correct expiration date, and so forth. But with that, if you save the information in the credit card here, then when it comes time to like process an invoice, instead of having you enter that credit card information, the software will already have that credit card information stored on there, where I can just go and add payment. So it makes it easier of, I already have their information. Let me just click on add payment because it already pre-populated that information. But secondly, if you remember from the payment plan, if you have a credit card information, then I can come down here and select that credit card, select it, and then from there I can enter details of when do I want to charge their cards automatically, how often, how do I want to notify the client. So with that, you know it, you have the option of storing those payment cards, you have that option of automatically charging your clients, and then they'll receive an email notification. So something to consider, adding their credit card information inside the payment methods area of their client profile. And then not just that, you also have trust accounts. So with trust accounts, should you want to add a trust account for your client, I can come in here, I can click on add transaction. Now with that, there's a couple options. If you select credit by payment card, this is directly linked with your LawPay or PayPal, which means if you've entered an amount here, if you enter an amount, the credit card number, and process the payment, this automatically goes into your LawPay or PayPal account, and you'll see those funds there in either one of those accounts. If you select the option of credit, this is kind of with the assumption that they paid you with something else. They paid you with cash, they paid you with a check, they paid you with whatever other type of money. But from here, should they pay you with an amount, let's say they paid me $5,000, I can enter a description here. I can say cash amount or whatever you want it to be. It's your description of what you want to add here. I can save it, and by doing so, I've now added $5,000 into their trust account. So by adding funds into their trust account, this now allows me to use that trust account funds onto any invoice belonging to this client. So if I wanted to add trust account money into one of these invoices, I can go back to my invoices here. From the invoices, I can go to the select option here. I can go to add payment. I can then select the payment type as trust account. And from here, the software is going to tell me how much is available on their trust account. I can then decide how much do I want to use, maybe $1,000. I can enter any reference, and I can say just trust account, whatever I want it to be. I can click on add payment. And in doing so, I've now processed the invoice for $1,000. The remaining balance is 6,250. If I go back into the client, into the invoice here, I'll see that if I go to second page here, the client will receive that little paper trail of what the payment that has been applied, the trust account, the reference number, who it was applied by. And then not just that, not only does it show on the invoice, if I go back into the trust account, I'll be able to see that on the 28th, a cash amount was added for $5,000. It was applied by this person. And then on the 28th, we used trust account payment for $1,000 on this invoice, invoice 2867. And from there, the remaining balance is $4,000. So you in the trust account would be able to have a little paper trail of what has happened with the funds that were added via the trust account. So with that, kind of summarizes billing inside eImmigration, how to do invoices, how to accept payments, payment plans, the different avenues that you can take using the software. But besides that, the last thing to show you here is you can also even run reports with the information in billing. So if you go to the magnifying glass to the left, even before I go into the magnifying glass, I did want to mention, if you happen to be inside the home page and you want to quickly process an invoice, if you click on the plus sign and you go to process payment, this right here, it'll ask you to locate by the invoice number. If I input maybe that same invoice number in whichever one on here, you can then start processing the invoice from directly from the homepage. So something to consider, you can go inside the client's profile and process the invoice there, or if you happen to be on the home screen and maybe you're processing multiple invoices, I can come to the plus sign, I can click on process payment. It'll ask me to locate by the invoice number, but from there, I can then start applying a cash transaction, $500. So it just makes it like a little shortcut being able to process those invoices from inside the homepage. So just wanted to point that out before I jump into showing you the report section. But with that, so jumping along to the report section. So as mentioned, we have reports already built for you. If you click on the magnifying glass, you go to our standard reports. And from our standard reports, we have reports pertaining to clients, cases. You also have billing reports. And with these billing reports, pretty much anything that you want to run, invoices with a balance, payments by date and office. So if I wanted to say, just show me all my invoices with a balance, I can click on the run button. From there, the software will generate a report for me with the exact information where I can then use this. Maybe I can click on that client's name to go into their profile, or I can export this to PDF, export this to Excel, being able to generate those reports with that information. And then with these reports that you have here are pretty, there's stock reports that we have for you that you can use. Should you want a little bit, should you want something a little bit more specific, you can create a custom report, but with custom reports, you do have to have the optional module custom reports. But with that, if you want to build a custom report, you can go to the admin tools. I can go to my templates here. I can go to add report template. And then with this one, I'm going to do a simple report. I'm going to say payments this month. I can say who has access to run this report. I'm going to give everyone access to be able to run this report here. And then from here, I'm going to go at the bottom here, and it's going to ask us to add criteria and add columns. Now, columns is what's going to be displayed. Criteria is narrowing down the information that's displayed on the columns. I like to work backwards. So the first thing I want to do is add columns here. So I'm going to say, okay, in the column section, I want to know what is the case number. So I'll say from the case profile, from the general info section, I want to know the case number. I want to know who's the client who, has the invoice. So I'm going to say from the client profile, from the general info section, I want to know their name. Now I'm going to start jumping into things that I want to see from the invoice, maybe from the invoice section, from the general info section, I want to know payment amount. I want to know from the invoice section, from the general info section, I want to know what's the balance. And then I can add more things on here from the invoice section, from the payment section. I want to know what was the payment amount on here. So from here, the last thing I do want to do, give me one quick second, is from the invoice section, from the payment amount section, I want to know the creation date. So when was the payment date, which you can modify here to show you payment date on there. But from here, just a simple report where I said, I want to know the case number, the client's name, the payment amount, the total payments amount. What was the payment amount for this particular payment that they applied? When was this applied? And then what's the remaining balance on the invoice? So from here, without even entering criteria, if I click on test, the software will basically list everything for me. As you can see, I have 2,192 records. If I want to narrow down some of that information, then you want to add some criteria. So I can say, okay, from all this that you see here, I actually want to add some criteria. So I only want to see invoices where the payment was done this week. So I said from the payment, the creation date this week, if I click on test, the software will show me just that one payment that I've applied today on here. So with this, you can enter as much criteria as you want. I can say not just payment this week. I can say, show me uh, anything by case, by client, by anything with the remaining balance, anything that's overdue. You can build a custom report with that information. But with this, just a simple report, payments this month, and then once you have a report built, let's say hypothetically payments this month, you can always come back into the admin and run that report, or should you be inside the caseworker portal, you could go to the magnifying glass and go to custom reports and be able to run that report. But kind of the last thing to show you is also not only can you do that, but if you build a custom report, you can even schedule these reports. So maybe you want a report at the end of the month, at the end of the week, maybe you have a specific report. I can go to my scheduled reports here. I can go and add a scheduled report, and I can call this payments, which I think I added it here, payments this month. That's the one that I created. I can say every end of the month, I want you to run this report. I want it to be, maybe for the next couple of years, so I can schedule how, that's by that date. I want this in Excel format. I want this to be recurring daily, weekly, monthly. I can decide who receives this email. So not just people that are in your organization that's using eImmigration. It can pretty much be anyone that you want to include on this email. But once I add this information, the time frame to CC and BCC anyone, subject, enter a message, and click on save, then it's now on the software to send me a monthly report, a weekly report, whatever the criteria I've entered there. The software will then automate sending me these emails with billing information via, an Excel spreadsheet that I receive. Now with that, kind of sums up our the billing, the different things that you can do with billing inside the software. We went over applying billing settings, creating invoices and payments, creating payment plans, adding trust accounts, storing payment information, setting up auto payments, and then using reports for billing. Now, last couple things. Someone asked during registration, can LawPay be integrated to the system? As we saw earlier, if you're signed up to credit card processing, then yes, you can link up your LawPay, and the LawPay integration is once it's linked, you can accept credit card payments, which will now reflect in your LawPay account. But yes, you can integrate LawPay into the software. And then with that, some resources. If you're ever stuck using the software, or if you have any questions, you can call us to our phone support Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. Just dial 1-800-617-4202 and hit the support option. From there, one of our support team members will address any questions you may have. You can also even email ECMS support at Cerenade.com. It's 7 days a week. And a quick tip when sending an email, you don't necessarily have to email eCMS support at Cerenade. If you actually go inside the software and you click on the question mark and you go to feedback technical support, this would be exactly the same thing as sending us an email. So if you click on that question mark, and anyone can do this, not just like administrators, if you're just like an assistant, if you're just someone who doesn't have admin access, it can be about billing, it can be about anything. Click on that question mark, click on feedback technical support. Just be as specific as possible. You don't want to say something like, oh, the billing isn't working, because that could be a million things that could be, something, whatever, So just make it as specific as possible, saying, hey, on case number 2, on form I-130, on this page, on this section, on this question, it's not doing this, or can you help me figure out why, just make it as specific as possible. And then with our email support team, they'll get back to you within a couple hours with a troubleshooting solution and explanation. It's feedback, it's technical support. So whatever the question may be, they'll get back to you with a response on there. And then let me go back on here. So you have our phone support, our email support, and then kind of what I guess I was going to, the technical support on the homepage. We also have our YouTube channel, which I'll show you in a little bit, and our Friday webinar. So with our YouTube channel, if you go back into that question mark, so not only do you have feedback technical support, but you also have our Cerenade Client Academy. If you click on this, it opens up to our YouTube channel. It opens up to the different videos. Every week we upload webinars, we upload small videos showing you how to do things here and there. If you search for something like how to do billing, the software will basically list, possible options, how to do billing, applying billing settings. So you'll be able to easily be able to recaps, stuff that we covered today in today's training. And then not only that, if you click on the question mark and you go to our training calendar, so right below question mark training calendar, this opens up our upcoming webinars. So probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing our July sessions, but every week we have a different session. Like today was billing, credit card processing. But with that, we'll be putting up a new set of classes. We'll have like basic training for new users, how to work with the admin tools, how to do different things. So with these, you're more than welcome to register, as many times as you want. Now, someone asked, let me go back one here. Let me go back to the questions. I lost you here. Give me one quick second. I was about to read the question and I lost the screen here. Now, someone was asking, are these recorded and can they watch this recording of on a future somewhere? Yes, so this is being recorded and this recording is actually being sent to once it's recorded here, we update it over the weekend, but you'll basically see it inside our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel, pretty much I would say by Monday or Tuesday we'll have it up there. So if you missed the last couple of sessions, like administrative portal settings and customizations, which was a month ago, you can always rewatch the webinar on there. So yes, we record these, we upload them over the weekend, and then from there, you'll be able to see that information inside YouTube. Not sure where give me one quick second here. For some reason, the questions, I think I found it here. There we go. For some reason, my questions and stuff was disappeared from the screen here on my second screen. Yeah, so with that, this kind of sums up our billing, credit card processing tutorial. We hope it was informative and, have a great weekend for everyone, but yeah, today's session is completed. Let us know if you have any questions.